check in on them, see exactly where they stand, and you know what? Talk about could there be a potential Hall of Famer in the mix? Thanks for keeping it locked on Wildcats.
You are Locked On Wildcats, your daily podcast on the Arizona Wildcats, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for keeping it locked on Wildcats. I'm your host, Mike Luke. All right, now we're going to have a special show today where we're just going to talk straight NBA U of A guys that are in the NBA because, as many of you know, the league is proliferated with Arizona Wildcats going all the way back to Lute Olson, and obviously got to give Coach a big credit for that. But let's talk about where everybody is. You could have multiple Hall of Famers right now from the University of Arizona in the NBA, or that are going to be in the NBA Hall of Fame, or Basketball Hall of Fame, excuse me. And let's first start with the man that is a no-brainer at some point, and that's Steve Kerr. Steve Kerr is a guy who is, I think at this stage in the game, it's fair to say that he knows how to coach a little bit. I think a lot of people thought, well, you know what, he just had some really talented Warriors teams. That's all nonsense. Granted, they were talented teams, not disputing that. But here's the issue, though, is that nothing was really expected of the Warriors this past season. And guess what? They ended up winning the NBA championship. This was after losing Kevin Durant. This is after having a bunch of injuries. And Golden State was still able to win the NBA championship. And you know what? Going into this season, they're a sexy pick by many to run off another one. Steve Kerr, though, you just look at it from a playing perspective, had 5 championships. From a coaching perspective, he has 4. He's got 9 right there. That is very, very, very rare air. And it's something, too, that we generally don't see from that's a very short list right there. Steve Kerr, Pat Riley, Greg Popovich, Phil Jackson, Red Auerbach. That's it. That's your list of the 5 best NBA coaches of all time. And honestly, I don't know that there's really anybody. I don't know that there's really anybody else that's in the discussion. And so, and that's what's very, very fun about it. Plus, on top of that, one thing that people do need to definitely keep an eye on, though, is Steve Kerr is not even close to being finished. He could run off some more championships. I don't think that anybody in the least bit would be surprised. Now, where exactly is everybody else then? Andre Iguodala is an interesting case, obviously playing for the Warriors right now. And is he a Hall of Famer? That's the question. And I don't believe he is. But it's hard. You could also make that case because there's guys that are in the Hall of Fame right now that certainly don't have the gravitas that Steve Kerr that Andre Iguodala does, from being one of the best defensive players in the NBA to being an NBA being an NBA Finals MVP. He's got a strong case to make right there. And we'll see what happens. I kind of believe that he's going to have a chance of getting in there. I really do. When you look at the championships, when you look at the accolades, he's certainly got that ability. We'll see what happens, though. Now, here's the other thing. Would look at some of these other players, though, that are around here. And it's also a testament to Lute Olson, because Lute Olson was able to put Lute Olson was still the coach. Lute Olson was still able to put these guys in the league right there. And Andre Iguodala, the fact that Lute Olson still has a player in the NBA right now is incredibly impressive. So that's kind of where you're at. The Golden State Warriors right now. That's kind of where you're at. Now, let's look at some of the other players. DeAndre Ayton is a guy who's kind of been a lightning rod for a lot of people because you watch him and you're thinking, okay, he should probably do a little bit more than he does. But at what stage, though, do you also say that, 18-10, 18-11 is still okay? He obviously had a tumultuous offseason, but we'll find out exactly what that means going forward. Now, where is DeAndre Ayton in the grand pantheon of Arizona players in the NBA right now? And I think you got to say that he's the best player in the world. Out of all of the U of A players. He is a guy who, when you watch DeAndre Ayton, you can just tell that basketball comes kind of easy to him. And that's a good thing, but that was always the case too when he was at the U of A. He was bigger than everybody else, but at the same time, he was also a guy who you watched him and you knew that this guy could be great. Now, I don't think he's ever going to be great per se. I think some people had David Robinson expectations for him. That's not going to ever be him. But you watch him though, and you can tell that he's a really, really good player, and he's very good for the Phoenix Suns. So that's, I think, where you're at with him. Now, Lauri Markkanen, another guy whose paths didn't really cross, or from a recruiting perspective, they crossed over, but that was essentially it. But you watch Lauri Markkanen, and now I think he's in a very good place because obviously being on the Cleveland Cavaliers, he's going to have a lot of talent, a lot of talented players around him. What is he going to be able to do? And I think right now, what's exciting about him, though, is he's going to be in a place where he's going to be able to accentuate his skills. He's going to be able to be it. He's going to be it. And it'll be fascinating to see what exactly does come of that. Now, if you did want to bet on something, the BetOnline Sportsbook is the place that you would want to bet. I like the Milwaukee Bucks to win the NBA championship this year. Now, you might say to yourself, Mike, you don't know what you're talking about right now. But I actually think that I do right now. And I'm going to say that I do believe that Milwaukee Bucks are going to beat the Golden State Warriors, who we've just been talking about, in 6 games. I think Giannis gets it back. But you know what? If you think I'm an idiot, go against me. But just bet on the BetOnline Sportsbook. It's really the place. It's really the place that you need to be. One thing that I think is fascinating about betting sites is that you get a lot of people that say to themselves, well, you know what, it's a little too complicated. BetOnline Sportsbook cuts out all of that. That's why you want to hop on there. Check it out, BetOnline Sportsbook. We'll be right back with you. We're going to keep talking Wildcats in the NBA. All right. Now, welcome back to Locked On Wildcats podcast. Now, where of some of the other guys that are in the NBA, everybody's fan favorite, TJ McConnell. Everybody loves TJ McConnell for an obvious reason. Nobody saw him becoming an NBA player. I certainly didn't. I didn't think that there was any chance that he was going to be an NBA guy. And our guy, Kevin O'Neill, who we had on, and he said, no. He says, that's not what NBA players look like. He said, they've got to be able to score. But you know what? TJ McConnell is going to be in the NBA for a long time. That's good. That's just the case. He is going to be in the NBA for a long time. And it's a great, great fit. He is a player that, you watch him and he just kind of shows that, you know what, you don't have to be that guy. You don't have to be uber athletic. Now, it certainly helps, but at the same time, you watch him and you also know that he goes and plays basketball the right way. But here's what's fun about him, though, is that he's teaming with Ben Mathurin. Ben Mathurin, who had one of the best jumps that I've ever seen from a player from his freshman to his sophomore year at the U of A. And I think his game is tailor-made for the NBA because he can get out and run, he can score, And again, he can do a lot of different things. I don't know what his ceiling is going to be, but it also wouldn't surprise me at all if his ceiling is he flirts with a couple NBA All-Star games or two. I think that he could really be that guy. We'll find out, though, we'll find out where he's at, though, at some point. Now, when you look at the rest of this squad, or you look at the rest of these guys around the league, Aaron Gordon's another one. You watch Aaron Gordon, and you know that he's a very, very good defender. We all knew that. And he's a decent enough scorer, even though he's still somewhat limited. He's always going to be that case. But if he's your third or fourth guy like he is on the Denver Nuggets, that's a good spot. Now, I look at it, and then I look at some of these other players. What exactly do you expect out of Dalen Terry? Dalen Terry, to me, is going to be an interesting player because, he definitely was ahead of expectations right there. But at the same time, how far ahead of expectations is he? Is he going to really be able to get some minutes? A lot of people are saying that he's going to be able to get some minutes this year. And if he can get some minutes this year, that's a pretty impressive feat for a guy that averaged 3 points, 4 points per game last time. That's that's a pretty impressive feat right there. So we'll find out exactly where everything is there, but still good stuff all the way around. Dalen Terry, then Christian Colko, who I have a feeling is probably going to play minutes, and he's probably going to play minutes this season. You watch him in the open court, you see how explosive he is. You see, the dunk that he had the other day was next level, and that's not something that I thought that he was ever going to be able to really do. And that's a real tip of the cap to him, because you watched him as a sophomore, and he was, he appeared to be kind of a stiff, to be honest with you. Again, that's probably a little bit too strong of a term, but he certainly didn't look good. He certainly didn't look like the kind of guy who was going to be able to, play at that kind of level. So again, we'll find that out. One thing that I do find about is that Arizona right now is these players in here, none of these guys are really Hall of Fame caliber type guys. But again, we could find out that that's maybe a little bit different. Who knows? Maybe I could be wrong on that. I don't know that I'm wrong on that, but the guys that are in the league right now all have, I think, really nice potential. But that's always kind of been the case, though, from the U of A guys, is that they proliferate the league with a lot of really talented players, but there's never kind of that next level guy. The only guy that has really kind of been that next level guy has been Gilbert Arenas, and unfortunately, Gilbert's career wasn't very long. But if you could find somebody to be an all-NBA type guy, that would be a really good thing as well. Now, if you're living in the desert, which a lot of people are, if you're listening to Locked On Wildcats and you're an Arizona fan, let me tell you about My Solar Nerd. My Solar Nerd their mission is simple. They want to help you get the best solar system to fit your needs. The guys at mysolarnerd.com are local and understand the nuances of going solar in Arizona. They've been doing this for a while and understand that an educated customer is a happy customer. Their no-pressure approach will make sure all your questions get answered. Their job is to help you. They'll also help you figure out all the credits and incentives you may qualify for, and they'll make sure that your transition to solar is as smooth as possible. Now, here's what's even better about it. Our listeners will get a $50 Amazon gift card when they book a no-commitment evaluation. This promotion is only for our listeners that are homeowners. Visit My Solar Nerd, and again, select Locked On how you'd heard about us, and make the switch to solar on your terms. Start your research process by visiting mysolarnerd.com today and show Locked On some love by letting them know that we sent you. Folks, going solar doesn't need to be complicated. mysolarnerd.com makes this one easy. That's why they're there. All right, we're going to talk a little bit more about the future of some of these Wildcats and what it could possibly mean going forward. Thanks for listening to Locked On Wildcats. All right, one thing about basketball is that Arizona, again, has produced some very, very good players over the years. Now, there's never been that next level team, but at this stage, it's also fair to say that Arizona the reputation of Arizona pretty much stands on its own. Everybody knows who Arizona is. Everybody knows everybody knows what he was able to do. But so it's a program in of itself. You don't really need NBA guys, but it's easier though if you get them. I think a lot of people were wondering how Tommy Lloyd was going to be able to recruit and what he was going to be able to say to players. And as far as producing guys for the NBA, and he's got a pretty easy sales pitch right now. He could say, listen, Ben Mathurin was always a talented player, but think about it. I brought in Ben Mathurin, 1 year under me. Ben Mathurin goes from, being a fringe, maybe first round pick to being a top 5 pick. Dalen Terry goes from being a sparingly used player to, from 4 points and 6 rebounds and a few assists to that, a guy who became a top 20 pick and is going to be kind of the, that new age type look, and Christian Colko. Now, I think the Colko one is always the most fascinating because when Lloyd was asked why Christian Colko was able to improve the way that he was, the one thing that he said was that Colko was a player who needed to be loved on. Not all players are the same, and I think that's what's so interesting about this approach. And Bill Parcells would always say this when he was asked, why do you yell so much at Phil Simms and let Lawrence Taylor slide? Well, because Phil Simms needs to be yelled at, Lawrence Taylor doesn't. As long as Lawrence Taylor is coming to practice and is at the games, I can deal with whatever Lawrence Taylor is doing. And that's what smart coaches understand. They understand that not everybody's the same, and that's, I think, a big key as to why Tommy Lloyd was really able to tap in on the Christian Colko, wagon right there. So that's kind of where we're at with that. Now, let me tell you about SweatBlock. Again, SweatBlock is. Are you ever embarrassed about You
are locked on.
Ever embarrassed that you're sweating a lot in front of people and you're like, I really wish I didn't have this problem? SweatBlock is here to be able to hopefully stop that from you. Here's the deal. Chris suffered from excessive underarm sweat for 10 years. This is a verified story. And he was so worried about sweating through his dress shirts that he started tucking maxi pads in his shirt to soak up sweat until he found SweatBlock. SweatBlock changed the game for him. And it's really easy here. SweatBlock was created by a doctor to help with his own excessive sweating. It is a doctor created and doctor recommended. If you or someone you love has experienced embarrassing sweat or odor, try SweatBlock. Save 20% with promo code LOCKEDON at sweatblock.com. Also available on Amazon. All right, we're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back with you. Thanks for keeping it locked on Wildcats. I'm your host, Mike Luke. This is going to be a fun thing to follow, though, throughout the year. How Arizona basketball players do in the NBA this year, because there's a lot of players there, and I think with the style that Tommy Lloyd runs, you're going to continue to see more guys in there. And that, again, that's what's exciting about all of this, because as much as everybody just cares about college, I totally get that, but the one thing that I think that we do all like about that is that, let's be honest here. It's great if Arizona is able to. It's great if Arizona is able to win a lot, but it's also, there's a lot of NBA fans out there, and a lot of NBA fans love watching players that they grew up rooting for. And that's where it is. So you got this fresh new batch of guys for the U of A from, again, Mathurin, Terry, Colko. Who could be next? Could it be a Julius Tabellis? Could it be a KJ Lewis coming up through the system? Who is that next NBA guy? And that's what's fun about it. Watching them in the league as well is good stuff. So, again, we're going to touch base every couple weeks on how the NBA Cats are doing. But as you know, we're going day by day now with the Locked On Wildcats podcast. Football's in full swing. Basketball's here as well. But, again, really appreciate all of you for hopping in here. We're going to be back with you tomorrow, Friday, on Locked On Wildcats. Again, you guys all have a great rest of your day, and we will talk with you tomorrow early on.